Okay, I was going to give it a couple extra minutes, see if somebody else walked in. But we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order and ask for a roll call, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Bryant,
Here.
Kathy Olam. She's not on here anymore? Oh, why do I have her on here? Commissioner Sandoval? Here. Ann Scheckman? Lee Willman?
Here.
Iris Green? Laura White?
Here.
I think we got
Katie Archie? Jennifer Duke?
Here.
Michael Lusk? Shelley Wynn?
Here.
Ella Howalt.
Ella sends her apologies.
Okay, we barely have a quorum, but we do. Okay, introduction of new board members. We have one new board member with us tonight, and Miss Jennifer Duke. And I'll give you a few minutes, say a few things about yourself if you'd like.
All right, my name is Jennifer Duke. I grew up here in Clovis. I'm currently an academic advisor at Clovis Community College. Went to Highland Elementary, where Ann Schuckman was my librarian. I think that's totally what got me on the board. Thanks. Thank you, Mrs. Schuckman. And I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Welcome to the board. Okay, we'll move down to the approval of the minutes of July the 25th. And if everybody's had a chance to look over the minutes, I'll ask for a motion.
I would so move.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a second.
No,
All
I
tho-
do have a correction.
Okay.
It says agenda number 7 for the good of the order. It says the next meeting will be July 25th on the back, and it's really October 24th.
Okay. Okay, we have a motion to approve with the corrections. And a second. Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Same with those opposed. Motion carries. Move down to reports. First one is a community report. If any of the board members have anything to report on, this is the time. Okay. Move down to the librarian's report. Mrs. Hinchy.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Commissioner, and thank you, Library Board, for being here on this wet, crazy night. Since we met in July, there's been a couple things that have, can you hear me? Yeah, can you hear me? So a couple things I want to discuss. So one thing that has gone on is we have a fire panel that is mandatory to have in our building. It was, according to the admin assistant who was there the day we opened on January 1st, 1992, that fire panel was there. So in the past 3 years, this fire panel has been flagged. It still works, it still functions. If any part of it dysfunctions, we require a brand new fire panel. It's not fixable. 3 years ago in 2019, I put it on a city wish list, and the price was $66,000. I asked for a new quote this year, and it's $166,000. So if we so have a chance to have a wish list for the city of Clovis, that'll be on my wish list, of course. It still functions, but if it malfunctions or any one part of it quits, it'll be kaput. So, and it's a mandatory safety thing for the fire marshal to have in our building. Yes, Lee?
Could you explain what a fire panel is?
So it says, do not use the elevator. You know, it says there has been smoke or fire detected in this building. Please leave by the closest exit. But it also says, do not, please take the stairs.
Okay, yeah.
And like I said, it still works. It just, you know, I'm trying to be proactive in case something happened to it. I think in our July meeting, I told you that every even year there is a revenue review committee that meets with thecity, and then I had a couple things I was going to propose. The first item that I proposed was to increase the rates on our meeting room, our Ingram room, from 20 to 30, as well as the deposit for the Ingram room. The deposit went up from 40 to 100. If these things are approved, they'll be approved by in the beginning of January. The second issue that I brought up was the ability to go fine free. It is really my belief that people will return their books when they are finished with them. and that with our economy and our population in Clovis and our socioeconomic level, I think going fine-free would be a benefit to our citizens. The argument for going fine-free is not just black and white, because there's a lot, as Laura can probably say, there's people who will keep their books and then renew them, and then they get overdue, and then they bring them back, and then they check them out again. That data is not just black and white. There's lots of parameters. In our world, a book is checked out for 2 weeks. Then a person gets 3 days grace period, but on the 4th day, they are charged 40 cents, and it goes up 10 cents a day. It's capped at $3. But let's say a family of homeschoolers has, each family member has 10 books out. So if they don't bring those 40 books back, they're going to have a humongous fine at the end of that when it's capped. If they bring it back, those fines are waived, of course. If a book is damaged or broken or lost, that we're still going to pay for, the patron is still responsible for the book. In all the data I have read, having fines prohibits people from using the library. They don't want to come in and pay for, they're embarrassed to have a late fee. In Clovis, so at our library, 99% of the books are returned. And those people, the people that return them, are mainly our adult fiction readers, which makes sense. They read all the popular fiction. And I use this at one of the meetings. I said they were taught that a library book is due when it's due and to bring back. Now you have a generation who really is more materialistic and not time-wise. So they may choose to have a book and not really worry about, it'll get turned in when it gets turned in. So my feeling is that to enable these younger people or these younger generation to come to the library, it would behoove us to remove the fines. So if a book was checked out for a prolonged period of time, it would still be billed. So that 1% that is not returned, that happens to be in juvenile and young adult. I can't tell you this for sure, but I can vouch for saying this, that most of these people that have children that have these books, their books are lost someplace in their house. They're going to find them. They're going to bring them back. Will we get 100% of our books back? No. But I think it's a service to our community to offer this to encourage people to come back to the library. Another, there's so many parameters here. So Lubbock has gone fine-free. There's 6 or 7 cities in New Mexico that are our size that have gone fine-free. The city of Chicago, which I know is leaps and bounds above us, when they went fine-free in 2017, they had a 240% return on their overdue books. The data speaks for itself. People want to use the library. They want to come and they want to read the books and read them until they're finished and then bring them back. So the amount that we give to the city in terms of fines is $4,100 a year. To me, that's a very small price to pay to encourage people to come back to the library. So we've had one revenue review committee, and it was tabled. And then we had another revenue review committee, and it was tabled. We'll have another one this Wednesday. Maybe I'm looking at this from an emotional standpoint. Maybe I'm looking at it in terms of the socioeconomic level of our younger patrons, and they don't carry cash. Their worlds are completely different from those of us in this room who were trained to bring back their books. I'm not saying that it's not a fiscal responsibility for these kids to bring back their books, but they are a completely different mindset. it's, to me, it's more of an emotional issue than a financial issue. And it's so little that we bring back to the city's budget that I don't see why we couldn't try it a little bit. Some of the other options that we could explore, if this doesn't go through, it does not get a recommendation to go to the city commission. Are you Katie? Yes, I'm sorry I'm late. That's okay. Hey, have a seat, Katie. You can, there's a name tag there for you.
Go ahead, come on up top.
There's a lot of parameters that we can do to figure out how to best serve our patrons. My daughter-in-law, who lives in Zanesville, Ohio, they check out books for 4 weeks. On the fifth week, first day, that book is billed. They're not giving the option of fines. There's other libraries that check out a book for 3 weeks and have a grace period, and then the book is billed. So again, they're not given the benefit of having fines. There's lots and lots of different ways that we could do away with fines without having to go fine free. But I was gonna say my sole purpose in life, one of my passions about being a library director is having people be able to use the library, check out books, read them. We have, a heck of a good collection. Read them and return them when they're done and not be penalized for when the books, anyway.
Miss Cincy, I got a question.
Okay.
On the small percentage of books, mostly children's books that aren't getting brought back into the
Sure.
library, are those books that need to be back in, or do we have duplicates that?
Oh, that's a good question. I haven't run the title list. Chances are they are not duplicates unless they're popular juvenile or YA fiction. If it's a book on a science fair project, we probably have, 40 books on a science fair project. So it may be a book that had one science project that appealed to them.
Well, I'm just kind of wondering, if parents, excuse me, have forgotten that the books have been checked out.
Right.
And they're lost under a bed or in a, toy
Right.
chest or wherever, and it's just been forgotten about.
Right.
Now they're kind of afraid to bring them back in due to the fines.
I know, exactly. And when a patron checks out books, Vicki, are these checked out? Did you get a receipt? Okay, where is it? So when a patron checks out books, they are given a receipt like this that shows the day they are checked out and the day they are returned. Patrons can also look at their account online to find out what items they have and when they are due. They can also call us to automatically renew their books.
Do we try to make contact with, with the person that's checking out the book or the
We
parents?
do after they get the third notice.
Okay.
Because after 2 weeks, it's like, oh yeah, they're still reading them. After 4 weeks, it's like, yeah, they'll get another notice. But after 3 weeks, right before it's billed, they do get a notice. They don't get a phone call, but they do get a notice that says, you have these books, and they were due back in the day. So,
Margaret?
yes, sir.
Is there a high enough percentage of books to where it might benefit us to have a forgiveness day?
We do that a couple times a year. We do it at National Library Week, and we have been known to do it during like October, or do a canned food drive for books. We do that a couple times a year. So yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what would happen if we, I guess would it be helpful to you? Could we support you by modifying or trying to modify the policy so that a notice is sent out saying, warning, if you don't bring back this item, you already send those out saying you're going to be billed for the full cost of the item if it's not returned. And like you just said, in those cases, most of those folks then bring the item back because
Right.
they get that notice, and
Right.
that's a little bit scary. Could you, it wouldn't technically be fine free, but is it possible that you just shift to a model where you send that notice out saying, hey, if you don't bring this item back, you'll be billed the cost of the item and also these accrued fines. However, if you return the item, everything's cleared.
That is a possibility, yeah.
I mean, I know that's not
Right.
fine-free
Right.
entirely,
Right.
but since most people, when they get that scary letter that says you're gonna have to pay us $50 for this book
Exactly,
if
yeah.
you know,
That
they
might
bring-
work. You know, there's, like I said, Laura, there are so many parameters about this issue, and it's not just black and white.
Right.
So on Wednesday at this revenue review committee, you know, my argument still stands. I think this prohibits people from returning their books. But if it is voted down or it is not going to be recommended to the city commission, I will have some other ideas in January when the board meets again on how to change our circulation policy to benefit the people in the best way so that they're not accruing fines. I really think people just want to read till they bring their books back. And Commissioner Sandoval, you brought up and Commissioner Bryan, you brought up the conversation about having duplicates in the collection. So I can say fairly that in our juvenile and easy parts of our library, we probably don't have very many duplicates, but there are like titles in nonfiction. So, you know, if you want a science fair book, if you want a book on what it takes to become a policeman, there's numerous books like that. In our adult fiction, and this is adult fiction, which primarily runs our library, runs our statistic portion of our library during the winter months that check out, you know, 90% of our books that are returned. On the day a book is purchased, if it's a popular author, I'm going to get 2 regular type, 1 large type, 1 audio type, and 1 ebook and 1 e-audio. So there's six versions of that, or 6 copies of that book available for checkout the day the book is published, or closely thereafter. If a popular book was checked out and not renewed and accrued fines, and somebody needed that book, a patron would put a hold on it, or one of my staff, and then we would call and recall that book. Whether they would actually bring it, I don't know. But, you know, like I said, to me, it's more of an emotional issue to have patrons be able to finish their books and return them as needed, with the consequences that if it's not brought back at a certain time, that it would be billed. The data speaks for itself. Libraries are getting people back in their buildings. And I felt like this is post-COVID, and it's a good time to make an additional change on engaging with our patrons and our public. Any other questions?
How much do we make off fines?
$4,100 a year.
I just want to say too that I just want to reiterate that all of the literature out there supports that libraries, regardless whether it's academic, public, whatever, the fines have no. I mean, it really just puts at a disadvantage the folks who socioeconomically cannot afford to pay the fines. And if you want to think about the worst kind of punishment or the worst kind of consequence is, if you can't afford to pay a $5 fine, well, then you just don't get access to information. And especially the folks who, I mean, need it the most, you know what I mean, who don't have the resources to go to Barnes & Noble and buy a book or just order a book off of Amazon or whatever. It really does just punish the folks who can't, you know, who can't afford it. So.
That's a good comment. You know, and I think in the end, we want to get the books back
Right,
in service,
right,
you know, rather than having to fine. So,
right.
you know, I'd rather see us go that way. But I know during that revenue review committee, we also talked about possible ways of kind of offsetting that $4,100 a year, and possibly doing that with notaries. Could you
Right.
talk about that a little bit?
Yes, so, so we've discussed to maybe offset that loss of revenue by charging for notaries. In the library, we have 3 notaries, Diana and I are 2 of them, and then one of my reference staff. My reference person that does notaries, there was a couple days last week when he did 24 and 28 notaries in the day. He has no time to do his reference work or the things that part of his job description that I would like him to do, because all he does is notaries. From September 21 to September 22, we did 3,705 notaries. Notary services are free for the city. The city buys the bond. And people come to the library because they know it's free. I was going to look tomorrow and ask Diane and Conrad to look at, we keep a notebook that tells what kind of notary service it is, and kind of get a glimpse of what kind of notaries we have. We do divorces, we do powers of attorney. At different times of the year, like when it's school starting or at Christmas time, we get these things called zero income statements by the hundreds. Those people aren't going to pay for a notary if they're filling out a zero income statement. That means they have no income coming in. So to charge them for a notary and the paper, yeah, they're not going to come in. So while I think, I'm on the fence. I think there should be a nominal charge perhaps for some types of notary, like maybe for divorce packets that are 60 pages long, but for simple powers of attorney or zero income, or just to have your child not be immunized in the schools, there shouldn't be a charge for that. But how do you make that discernment?
Just a question on that. The people that do come in for notaries, do you notice they come in for anything else? I mean, are they
No.
regular patrons, or
No.
do they just come in for notaries and that's pretty well it?
And I will also tell this library board that if someone comes in with a handwritten letter like this that says, Margaret Hinchy's going to give Diana Thompson $300 for rent each month. Ooh. I tell them, and I look at their ID, and I said, all this is providing for you is that I have seen your identification. You are who you say you are. I can guarantee that probably 60% of those people think they're walking out with a legal document, and they're not. No, but they think they are. They think it's the written word. But we get people from the courts, and I don't know how many you guys do at City Hall. Not as many.
Do we do a lot with the city as far as notaries?
Mr. Chairman, members of the Library Board, good evening. We do. I often have them at lunchtime. I'm usually there through lunch, and most days I would say that I have somebody come in. But I feel that oftentimes people will ask at the end, do I owe you anything? Do you owe anything? By the time I've done the notary, and then I had written the invoice and gone across to finance and given them their receipt, it would have taken me another 10 minutes to get them their, check their identification, witness notarize their document. It doesn't take 5 minutes to do it.
Not really worth the paperwork that goes
To
along
me,
with it.
Not.
if I was then to charge them $5, it would have cost them 10 or whatever to me to gone and done the paperwork for them. So, and they're always people are very grateful that the city provides that. I mean, they're taxpayers, and this is a service that we can provide and give back to the community.
Sure. Great, thank you.
Are there any questions about going fine-free or the notaries?
Any other questions regarding the fines for notaries, or? No? Okay, if you want to go on with your report?
Sure. So, at the onset of World War II, there were over 300 ships commissioned to be built that had names of cities. So there was the SS Clovis Victory ship that was never really in the war. I would say the war water, never really was an active duty, but we have been given a plaque. There's a piece of the ship, I should have gotten it, that's about this big and this big, that has the SS Clovis Victory and when it was in service. It'll be going on a north wall outside the North Annex where all our other flags are going. There will be a narrative and a picture with it, so it's kind of a nice artifact to add to our military stuff.
And we'd like to have a dedication service.
Oh, a dedication, okay, as soon as we get that picture,
And
okay.
Probably part of veterans might be nice to do it.
Oh, that would be nice, yeah.
Okay.
Our programming is up. We've had an anime club started. We had an escape room event. We have had 2 Chautauqua programs. So our programming is up. And that's also vote for going fine free, because the more people we get in here, the more they're going to use our services, the more programs they're going to attend, the more they'll want to come back. I mean, it's a circular thing. So, but it's nice to see the people in here. It's nice to see 17 or 20 kids at story time with Ashley. That kind of thing just kind of warms your heart. Except that right after COVID went down and we had all these kids in, I looked at one kid and I'm like, where did you come from? Because we had been so slow for so long. But it's lovely seeing those kids in here. Let's see. Our Friends of the Library is doing great. We have a president who's been there about 2 years, Sarah Stevens, and they are so productive that the Friends of the Library is flush once again. They had a book sale in the beginning of October, and they raised about $1,000. The money that they raised goes to programming. So we are very beneficial. We are very thankful for them. Let's see. We had an active shooter training last Wednesday, and for those of you that were aware, we had an active shooter event in 2017, and we've had various trainings, not really like exercises, but just trainings. This guy, I told him, I said, you ought to make a CD. He was so empowering. He told us that, I mean, in all kinds of ways, he told us that we were all empowered to take care of ourselves, and told us that there was a fight or flight issue and that you need to be responsible for yourself. It was very, very, very well done. If he goes on a road trip, I'm going with him. I have Kelsey Stockwell, who's Mark Yanati's daughter. She's leaving for the 3rd time. This time, I think she's leaving for good. She and her husband are moving to Oklahoma City, where he's being trained in flight school. So that'll be a hard loss. She's been a full-time, she was hired like 3 months after I started, so she's been there nearly as long as I have. I have one staff member whose wife will have a baby like any day, so that's kind of exciting. So I'm looking at a couple vacancies for a little bit. Kelsey's, I think, will be hard to fill because it is a part-time job. We're working on a Christmas open house, which is usually held the day of the parade. And it has kind of morphed into an afternoon event. We first had it the December of 2017 as like a reopening of the library after the shooter event. But it has now become in conjunction with the parade. And we have Santa come, and we have crafts, and we have a story read, and we have pictures. And it's a well-turned-out event. In the past, like 8 years, for our community commitment, we would do cookies and cocoa right before the parade. I think we're not going to do that this year. There was one of the people that was serving cocoa spilled hot water on her arms and scalded herself. So I think we'll just stick with the in-house open house and call it good this year. That's kind of the feeling I get. I think that's all. Commissioner Sandoval, this will be your last meeting, correct?
It's too short and too sweet.
Right. So I assume that the county will take the correct means to get your position reappointed?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
I'm sure that the county will make sure your person gets appointed.
Usually what the county does when a commissioner leaves, they offer the job to the incoming commissioner.
Okay.
And then if he doesn't want it, then they go ahead and ask if anybody else wants to volunteer. So I'm reasonably sure that Fidel will take it, and he will make a good representative.
Good. Well, we've enjoyed having you on the library board.
It's been a pleasure for me. Except that I have to sit like Chris, but that's, I put up with it.
What a hardship. That's my report. I'd like to introduce Katie Archie. He's one of our students. I'm Margaret. I'm the library director. It's nice to meet you. And I have a policy manual for you.
Okay, thank
You want to tell us about yourself?
Yes. Obviously, I'm Katie. I'm a sophomore at Clovis High School. I'm a member of basketball, volleyball, and student council. And I'm just wanted to be on the library board because I love the library a lot and I just wanted to help give back.
Thank you.
That's great. We're glad to have you on it. Thank you.
Thank you.
So.
Okay.
Yeah, there,
See.
I don't think there's anything else.
Okay, does anybody have any questions?
I just had a question back to the fire panel thing. Is it possible that there might be national or statewide grants to
There could be.
improve
You're right,
safety
Laura, there could
equipment
be.
that we could look at?
Uh-huh.
I mean, I don't want to add work for you, but is that something we could help look for, or I don't know? I mean,
Right. No, I could look for a grant. So the city manager asked me to ask the New Mexico State Library if I could use GO bond money. And it was
Yes.
turned down.
oh no.
Because it's not an elective thing, it's a mandatory thing. And it's sanctioned by the
Yeah.
state fire marshal.
So they
So
see
it's
it
a
as an
requirement to have in the building.
Yeah, so they see it as an obligation of the city to
Right,
provide it, yeah.
Right, so,
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know, there may be a block of funds out there just for safety improvements, or I don't know. But
And, Mr. Chairman, members of the library board, Ms. White, we receive, Ms. Hinshaw, I forward all the grant opportunities from the federal level to the department directors every week, so we'll keep an eye out, see if
Yeah.
there's anything there that could match possibly.
so far there has not been, but yeah.
Okay. Any other questions?
So let me say one other thing. So
Okay.
after the Revenue Review Committee meets, Laura brought up that we might want to, I anticipated not being a recommendation to the city commission. So I think there's a part of our policy manual that talks about how long things are checked out, what the fines are, when they're billed. So that part of the policy manual will have to be rewritten. So it will be brought, our policy manual is reviewed in January, so that will be brought to our January meeting. And our policy manual will at that time be reviewed, and then any changes will go in front of the city commission.
All right. Move down for the good of the order. I was also going to mention Commissioner Sandoval's retirement and wish him well.
Thank you.
I'm sure he's got plenty to do on his plate once he,
I've got a
Retires?
honey-do list that's 14 feet long.
I'm sure.
Every time I cross one out, she adds 2 more. So it's a never-ending list.
Good wife.
Going to keep you busy, that's for sure.
But it has really been a pleasure being on the board, and thank you guys for putting up with me.
But we were glad to have you. Thank you. Ms. Burrows, do you have anything for the good of the order?
I do not, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Date and time of our next meeting will be January the 30th, right after the first of the year. And take a minute just to wish everybody a happy holiday, since we won't be meeting again until then. And welcome our new members. And with that, we are adjourned.
Thank you.